Are you local or did you buy that? All right. Not only do you proudly display, but you spent money. That's great. A few words, but in the meantime, just enjoy the view. This is also a great time to ask questions while we're waiting for the group to assemble.
You're going to take, you can take, it will take you into that space. We call it the war room. And you can see the doors are actually, they're not just regular doors, they're vaults. Like this one, has a combination on it. The Marines would lock everybody in. And it's a real interesting tour. If you get a chance to take it, it's called the TFCC tour. It's up here on the flight deck. So as soon as you get done with this tour, you'll be really close to where that tour starts. So you can ask somebody with a yellow hat, they'll tell you. I recommend that one as another tour. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. Anybody questions about the ship? How big it is? How many gallons of paint it takes to paint the ship? Somebody asked me that. I have no idea.
Heard down below before you came up the ladders. Some of the spaces we're going to be going into are fairly small, and as you can see, we're a very large group. So go ahead right there and hop on in. So come on in, make sure everybody can get in so that Gary can close the door. So this is primary flight control, or PriFly. This is where the air boss and his... Running an aircraft carrier aground is not traditionally considered a career-enhancing activity for either the captain or the navigator. So the navigator's team is going to use the fathometer to make sure there's always safe water under the keel. Each of the charts also has a heavy black line. That's the course the navigator wants the ship to trace, entering or leaving the location of the ship on the chart, so we know whether we're on that course or not. There's a couple of ways to do that. One is to identify multiple landmarks on the chart and then take a directional bearing. What you're going to do is sight the landmark and measure the angle between the landmark and the ship. Then you just draw lines at those angles. Where those lines cross, that's where the ship is. If visibility is a problem, you can do something similar with radar, where you very precisely measure the distance to those landmarks and draw little arcs of constant distance. And using that technique, the team in here can pinpoint the location of the ship with an accuracy of about 100 feet. But what do you do if you're out in the middle of the Indian Ocean and there are no landmarks because there is no land and therefore there is no chart? Well, one of the things you can do is a very, very old form of navigation, literally been used for hundreds of years, called celestial navigation. And that entails measuring the angle between the horizon and a known set of celestial objects, stars or planets, at very precise times. We do that with a device called a sextant. There's a sextant in the display case behind you folks, and you guys get to look at a picture of the sextant. Because you have to be able to see both the horizon and the star or planet at the same time, you can at best do this twice a day at dawn or dusk, and you may not be able to do it then if the visibility is poor. So the accuracy of celestial navigation is more like 1 to 3 miles than 100 feet. But if you're out in the middle of the open ocean, 1 to 3 miles is actually good enough to safely get you where you're going. Now, of course, we get signals from geosynchronous satellites. That's a technology you're all familiar with. You probably have it in your pocket or your purse. It's called GPS. Midway had GPS back in the mid-1980s. It was one of the early Navy ships to get it. We take it for granted today, but 35 years ago, GPS was really cutting-edge technology. And using GPS, you can locate yourself anywhere, essentially on the surface of the planet, with an accuracy of between 3 and 10 meters, depending on the technology. But I think, so it's the preferred form of navigation today. But I think it's interesting that the United States Naval Academy still teaches all of its midshipmen the principles of celestial navigation, because they believe all naval officers should understand the fundamentals of how you navigate a ship around the world's oceans. Okay, we're going to move on to our next stop, which is the Captain's Bridge. So again, if you let me skinny out there first, then follow close behind me.